And the latest Fox News poll on the issue of terrorism has it essentially tied. 47-46 within the margin of error, and there you see where it has come from since May, last August, and then now. Let's bring in our panel. Jillian Turner, former National Security Council staffer under Presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama. Charles Lane, opinion writer for The Washington Post, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Okay, Charles, what do you think? Responses and how they've kind of changed?
Well, I think the response you heard from the presidential spokesman on narrative was clearly a mistake and something that can be easily exploited by the other side, and should be, because it reflects the president's idea, which he's had since the beginning of his terms, which is that diplomacy, soft power, and all this is what international relations is all about, and this is a subset of that. In other words, the war on terror is a war of narratives, it's a war of ideas, hearts and minds. Yes, however, hearts and minds are swayed by what's going on the ground. It's what bin Laden talked about when he said people will go for the strong horse. The fact that there is less recruitment to ISIS today is a reflection of the fact that it's losing on the ground slowly, very gradually. But nonetheless, if you're going to give your life to the jihad, you're not going to do it if you think the jihad is not going to succeed. And that, I think, is what this administration simply never understands. Everything is soft, everything is ideological, and nothing matters on the ground. Everything hinges on what happens on the ground.
There is something about the emotion of delivery and internalizing what people at home feel about the terrorist threat. You saw a difference, I think, Chuck, in how Hillary Clinton said, we don't often hear her say, we're going to smash ISIS, perhaps in reaction to Donald Trump's statements?
In watching this entire campaign, you really start to form the impression that these two candidates are addressing two different, as almost with every other issue, two different audiences who see the world through two very, very different lenses. On the Republican side, there's an emphasis on force, the emphasis on radical Islamic terrorism, the emphasis on all this sort of hard power side of the story. And over on the Democratic side, the emphasis is all on don't overreact, don't go too far, don't reach for the hammer. And these are two different worldviews in competition now over how best to fight terrorism. And I think it's interesting in that regard. Quinnipiac had a poll today that shows that among Republicans are 3 times more likely to say than Democrats that they fear being directly hit by terrorism. I don't know why that would necessarily be the case, but these two candidates are dealing with different emotional experiences depending on party now.
That's a good point. You worked for both administrations, different worldviews in the NSC. You buy that description?
Completely. I would say that on Saturday, in the middle of these unfolding incidents, Trump did a really great job of connecting emotionally with people. Hillary Clinton did not, but she bounced back today in her comments, and that was because she had some real substance to fall back on, by which I mean I really commend the fact that she, of the two, has put forward a comprehensive plan to defeat ISIS that American voters can look at, can evaluate, can decide for themselves whether they think it's viable or not. I think that Donald Trump has really shot himself in the foot at this point by still refusing to put forward a plan. I think it's downright disrespectful to the voters at this time. I mean, we're now 50 days out. I was hoping we were going to have something 6 months ago, and he's still standing by his decision not to do it.
And yet, when he talks about going after ISIS, when he links this all together and says that his opponent is weak, just as Barack Obama is, it is suggesting this is a third-term candidacy.
And I think it really is a third-term candidacy. It always is at the end of a 2-term presidency, whether it's a former vice president or secretary of state. It's particularly true in this case because she was involved in the decisions. Yes, according to the memoirs, she was more hawkish than Obama on Syria, Libya. That's not exactly a talking point, and other places. But nonetheless, she is tied to the hip to Obama and the policies. And even when you hear the presidential spokesman today speaking about narratives, it washes over on her. There's no escaping that.